Truckers in Texas and Nevada keep telling the same story. A late-night knock, small voices asking to be let inside the cab, and eyes, no whites, no iris, just black. This is one of the most chilling legends on America's highways. Some swear it's urban myth, others say it's a warning. This is the story of the black-eyed children at a truck stop. From Pecos to Fort Stockton, from Winnemucca down to Mesquite, the reports line up. Small kids, clothes out of season, pale, and those eyes. Tonight you'll hear 3 first-hand accounts told almost exactly as the truckers described them. For long-haul drivers, the cab becomes home. Hours roll by in darkness. Rest stops are the only break, patches of light in the endless night. But sometimes, those bright spots feel darker than the road itself. It was 2:30 in the morning, West Texas, near Pecos. I parked at a rest area, engine off, just trying to shut my eyes. That's when I heard it. 3 soft knocks on my driver's side door. I look out. There's a boy and a girl, maybe 10 years old, standing in the gravel. Skinny, pale, dressed like it was Sunday school. Neat clothes, but old-fashioned, almost faded. And their eyes, pitch black. They wanted me to roll the window down, said they needed a ride. Every instinct I had screamed, "Don't." I cranked the ignition and drove off so fast the gravel sprayed. In the mirror, they were just standing there, watching. I was running I-80 through Nevada, pulled into a lonely rest stop, nothing but desert for miles. I shut off the lights, leaned back. Around 3 a.m., I felt that pressure that someone's watching. Then came the knock. Just once. I slid the curtain back. A girl, maybe 12, standing under the lamppost. She asked, "Can I come in? I need to call my mom." But her voice, it wasn't right. Flat, rehearsed, like she didn't know how to sound human. And those eyes, just black pits. My chest got tight, like I couldn't breathe. I didn't even start the truck. I just laid on the horn until she was gone. But when I pulled out, I swear I saw her standing at the highway on-ramp, smiling. South of Fort Stockton, I pulled into one of those picnic areas, just a couple tables and trash bins off the highway. Midnight and not a sound except my own breathing. I just laid back when I heard it. A voice, a child's voice, faint, like it was whispering through the sleeper vent. "Sir, can you let us in?" At first I thought I was dreaming, but then, tapping. Soft, quick, fingernails against the glass. I shot upright, grabbed my flashlight, and shined it out the window. There were 4 of them, 4 kids, standing shoulder to shoulder in the gravel, pale skin, old-fashioned clothes, and those eyes, black, bottomless. Not one of them blinked, not one of them moved. I slammed the truck into gear, gravel flying as I tore out of there. But as I hit the highway, every light on my dash flickered and died. Radio, speedometer, all of it. For 3 seconds I was in total darkness, engine roaring beneath me. Then everything blinked back to life, like nothing happened. I never stopped in West Texas overnight again. Not once. Folklorists call them the black-eyed children. Reports go back decades, doorstep encounters, mall parking lots, now truck stops. The pattern's the same, a request to be let inside, and an overwhelming sense of dread. No one knows what happens if you say yes, because no one who's seen them ever did. Some truckers laugh it off as stress, exhaustion, too much caffeine. Others refuse to stop in certain parts of Texas or Nevada after dark. The strange thing is, the details match too well across too many states. They all describe the same thing: children, polite voices, black eyes, and fear unlike anything they've ever felt. What makes it harder to dismiss are the details. Truckers who never met each other, never shared stories, describing the same thing. Kids who speak like machines trying to sound human. Clothes out of time. And eyes so dark, they feel alive. It isn't just fear, it's primal, like your body knows something your brain can't explain, that letting them in would be the last thing you'd ever do. I'll leave you with this. A few months ago, outside Amarillo, I pulled into a rest stop just to stretch my legs. I was the only one there. The air was still, silent. As I shut my door, I heard it. 2 soft knocks against my cab. I froze. The world felt wrong, like it tilted beneath me. I didn't look, didn't check. Just climbed back inside, locked everything, and drove. The black-eyed children, I used to think they were just stories. Now, I'm not so sure. Have you ever laid down inside your truck cab at night, locked the doors, pulled the curtain closed, and still felt like someone was standing right outside, staring in. It's the kind of thought that eats at you when you're a trucker. Out on the road, we like to think the cab is our fortress, our little moving home where no one can reach us. But let me tell you, that illusion shattered for me one night in Corbin, Kentucky, 2016. That night, at a pilot truck stop, I learned how quickly safety can vanish, how close death can creep without you even realizing it. A trucker was murdered, stabbed to death in his own cab, just a few trucks over from me. And the worst part? I remember the man who killed him. I saw him earlier. He was scouting, watching, maybe even planning to pick me. And sometimes, when I'm driving through the dark, my mind replays it. The sounds, the silence after, the realization that I might not be here telling you this story at all. It was after midnight when I rolled in. I'd been on the road for hours, hauling freight out of Tennessee. My eyes burned from the strain, and my shoulders felt like they were made of stone. Truck stops at night usually have a certain rhythm. Diesel engines idling, the hiss of brakes, the low murmur of truckers on CB radios. It's noisy, alive, like a rest stop city that never really sleeps. But that night, it felt different. The noise was there, but it felt hollow. The air itself felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. I can't explain it, but it was like stepping into a place that already knew something bad was about to happen. I found a parking spot between two rigs near the edge of the lot. The overhead lamps cast that sickly yellow light across the blacktop, leaving deep shadows between the trucks. I cut the engine, sat there for a moment, and felt a strange chill crawl up the back of my neck. I tried to shake it off, told myself it was just exhaustion. When I stepped out to stretch my legs, I noticed him almost immediately. He didn't fit in. Out here, you can tell who's a trucker and who isn't. We carry the road on us, grease-stained jeans, weathered faces, reflective jackets, clipboards, logbooks. This man had none of that. He was thin, gaunt, wearing a gray hoodie pulled tight around his face, hands jammed into his pockets. And the way he moved, that's what unsettled me. He wasn't just walking around. He was weaving between trucks, moving slow, pausing to look at cabs, almost like he was reading them. At one point, he tilted his head and stared straight at me. His eyes met mine, and I swear for a split second, my body froze. It wasn't just the look of a man passing by, it was calculating, cold, like he was weighing me as an option. I tried to shake it off. Maybe he was just some drifter. Maybe he was looking for loose change or a cigarette. Truck stops attract all kinds. I went inside, grabbed a coffee, even forced a little small talk with the cashier, but the unease never left me. When I walked back to my truck, there he was, still there, still pacing, and this time I caught him leaning close to a cab window, not knocking, not speaking, just looking in, like a man window shopping for prey. My pulse jumped. My first instinct was to shout, but something in my gut told me not to. Instead, I climbed back into my cab, slammed the lock down hard, and pulled my curtain shut. I sat there in the dark, gripping the steering wheel, my heart pounding in my ears. It must have been 30, maybe 40 minutes later when I heard it, a knock, not on my cab, but close, too close. I peeled the curtain back just an inch, and there he was, the same man standing at the truck 2 spaces over, knocking softly on the driver's door. Not a normal knock either. It was slow, almost gentle, like he didn't want the world to hear, just the man inside. The driver didn't answer. I could see his silhouette through the thin curtain inside his cab. He sat perfectly still, like me, listening, waiting. The stranger leaned closer, knocked again, then whispered something I couldn't hear. And then it happened. The silence broke with a sudden muffled shout, the sound of a door swinging, a scuffle. I saw shadows thrash violently against the curtain, fists, movement. Then something sharp, the driver's silhouette jerked, spasmed, and then stopped. I sat frozen, my mouth dry, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might wake the whole parking lot. I wanted to scream, to call the cops, but my hands wouldn't move. The hooded man slipped down from the cab. His steps were slow, calm, like he hadn't just taken a life. Under the yellow light, I saw it, something dark smeared across his sleeve. His gloved hands flexed once, and then he melted back into the shadows between trucks. For the longest time, I didn't move. didn't breathe. My truck felt like a coffin, and I was terrified if I so much as shifted he'd notice me. The only sound was the low hum of idling engines. And in that silence, the truth sank in. The man inside that cab was gone. A trucker, one of us, murdered where he slept, a brother of the road gone just like that. And I was sitting right there, watching, too scared to do a damn thing. By the time dawn broke, the horror spilled out. Another driver went to check on his buddy and found the body. I'll never forget the sound of that scream. Within minutes, the place was swarming. Sirens, flashing lights, officers barking orders. We were all pulled out, lined up, questioned. Nobody could believe it. Truck stops feel dangerous sometimes, sure, but this was something else. That's when we learned the truth. The man had been hanging around all night, asking drivers for cigarettes, for spare cash, even pretending to look lost. But that wasn't all. He'd been seen circling cabs, peeking inside, studying us like he was choosing which door to knock on. And here's what haunts me most. It could have been me. I saw him looking at my cab. I saw him staring at me earlier that night. What if he had knocked on my door instead? I think about that every time I close my eyes in a truck stop. That knock, that whisper, and the thought that if I had answered, I wouldn't be here. That night broke something in me. Truck stops used to feel safe, like little islands for drivers to rest, grab a meal, share stories. But after Corbin, I see them differently. I see shadows between the rigs. I hear phantom knocks on the door. Now I triple-check my locks. I don't open the curtain for anyone. And when footsteps crunch outside my cab at night, I hold my breath and wait. Because I know there are men out there who stalk these lots. Men who hunt. Men who wait for the moment you let your guard down. And the next knock you hear on your truck door might not be a friendly one. They call him the Vanishing Man. If you've ever hauled freight through Nevada in the dead of night, maybe you've heard the stories. A figure on the side of the road, desperate, waving you down like his life depends on it. But the moment your headlights hit him, he's gone. No dust, no footprints, just empty desert. Some truckers laugh it off, others swear it's true. And me, I didn't believe a damn word of it until the night I drove down Highway 375. That stretch of blacktop out in the middle of nowhere, the one they call the Extraterrestrial Highway. What I saw out there still wakes me up in a cold sweat. And if you've ever thought ghosts were the only thing to be afraid of on the road, you might want to think again. It was one of those nights when the desert feels endless. The kind of night where even the stars look cold and the silence seeps into your bones. I'd been driving for close to 8 hours straight. My load was heavy, the deadline was tight, and I was deep into that dead stretch of road where you could drive 50 miles and not see another living soul. Outside the cab, there was nothing but open desert. Flat, cracked earth and jagged mountains that looked like teeth biting into the horizon. The moon was a thin silver blade overhead, and the only sound was the low growl of my diesel engine. The farther I drove, the heavier the air felt. I don't know how else to explain it. It was like the desert itself was leaning in, pressing against the glass of the cab, watching me. Truckers talk about this highway. They say it's cursed. They say it's haunted. They say the desert doesn't just hold secrets, it swallows them. And that night, I was about to learn what they meant. It happened fast. I rounded a bend and suddenly, there he was. A man, standing in the middle of the road. He was far off at first, just a shadow in my headlights. His arms were stretched wide, waving desperately like someone trying to flag down a ride. My foot slammed the brake without even thinking. Out here, breaking down could mean life or death. I'd seen enough stranded drivers to know the desert doesn't forgive weakness. But as the beams of my headlights rolled across him, he was gone. Not walking off the road, not ducking behind a bush, just gone, like my eyes had made him up. I sat there, staring at the empty pavement, my heart beating so loud it felt like the only sound in the world, and that's when the radio went insane. My CB erupted with static, violent, crackling static that stabbed straight into my skull. At first I thought it was interference, happens sometimes out here. But no matter what channel I switched to, the noise followed. It wasn't random static either. It had a rhythm, almost like breathing, and buried in that hiss and screech was a voice, faint, distorted. But there, it whispered just two words. Don't stop. My blood ran cold, because that's exactly what I had just done. I told myself I was imagining things, sleep deprivation, exhaustion, my mind playing tricks. I pushed the accelerator and kept rolling, trying to shake the unease. But a mile later, he was there again, closer this time, not in the middle of the road, but just at the edge of my headlights. His skin looked pale, almost gray, stretched tight over bones. His clothes were torn, ragged, like they'd been baking in the desert sun for years. And his eyes, God help me, his eyes glowed. They caught the light and burned back at me, bright and animal-like. He opened his mouth as if to scream, but nothing came out. And then he vanished again. That's when everything failed. My headlights flickered once, twice, then died. The cab was swallowed in absolute blackness. Not just night, but a void, like the world itself had blinked out. And in that instant, when the lights were gone, I saw him. Not outside, not on the road, but inside. Standing right there in the cab, inches from my face. I saw him in the reflection of the windshield, hollow eyes burning, his mouth stretched too wide, as if it was ready to swallow me whole. I screamed and slammed the brakes. And just like that, the lights roared back to life. The cab was empty again, but the smell lingered. A dry, suffocating stench of sun-baked earth and something rotten, like old meat, left out in the desert heat. I didn't think. I just hit the gas. The engine roared, the tires screamed, and I tore down Highway 375 faster than I'd ever dared before. My heart was in my throat, my hands shaking so hard I could barely keep the wheel straight. But when I glanced in the side mirror, I nearly lost control. He was there, running alongside the truck. No, not running, gliding. His legs didn't move right. His body flickered in and out like static on a broken TV. 1 second solid, the next transparent, like he was phasing in and out of reality. And no matter how fast I pushed that rig, he kept pace. For miles I could see him there, smiling that awful silent smile. Until suddenly, he was gone, and the radio went dead silent. By the time I reached the next gas stop, the horizon was bleeding with dawn. I pulled over, sat in the cab, and just breathed. I wanted to convince myself it hadn't happened, that it was exhaustion, hallucination, too much caffeine, and too many miles. But when I told the story later, other truckers didn't laugh. Some nodded, quiet, like they'd seen him too. And they told me the same thing. The Vanishing Man isn't just a ghost. He isn't just a trick of the light. He's something else, something not human. And if you ever see him out there on the extraterrestrial highway, whatever you do, don't stop. Because once you let him close, he doesn't always vanish. Sometimes he takes you with him. You ever been driving late at night, half asleep, the road stretching out forever, and then you glance in the rearview mirror, only to see headlights racing up behind you? It's a scary enough thought on its own. But what if those headlights belonged to a semi-truck barreling down the highway, and when you looked closer, there was no driver behind the wheel? That's exactly what happened to me one foggy night in the Smoky Mountains. And I can swear to you, it wasn't just a trick of the light. It wasn't exhaustion. What I saw out there on that mountain road was real. And it's haunted me every time I've driven those roads since. I was making a long-haul delivery, the kind of run that stretches way past midnight. By the time I hit the Smoky Mountains, it was close to 2 in the morning. The road was practically empty, no other cars, no headlights in either direction. The mountains have this way of making you feel swallowed up. The trees are so tall and thick, they block out the stars, and the fog rolls in like a living thing. My radio had lost its signal about an hour earlier, so it was just me, the steady hum of my tires, and the occasional groan of the engine. At first it was peaceful, lonely, sure, but peaceful. Then I noticed a faint glow in my mirrors, headlights way off in the distance. No big deal, I thought. Probably just another trucker pulling a late-night shift. But the way those lights grew, the speed at which they closed the gap, it didn't feel right. Within minutes, the glow behind me was blinding. The truck was tailgating me so close I could barely see the road in front of me for the glare. I flicked my blinker, tapped my brakes lightly, trying to signal him to back off. Nothing. Instead, he surged closer. The high beams filled my mirrors. I couldn't see a thing but white light, searing into my eyes. I had to lean my head out the window just to see the lines on the road. My heart started pounding. What the hell's wrong with this guy? I muttered to myself, trying to keep calm. That's when I squinted through the glare and realized something that made my blood run cold. There was nobody in the driver's seat. I leaned forward, straining my eyes against the glare. For a second, the fog shifted, and I got a crystal-clear look at the cab of the semi. It was empty. The seats were there, the wheel turning slightly as the truck followed me through the curve, but no one was sitting there. The truck itself was massive, jet black. The kind of old rig you don't see much anymore. Long-nosed chrome grille shining like it had just rolled out of a showroom, except the paint looked faded, chipped, like it had seen decades of road. But there was no driver, not even the outline of one. No shadow, no movement, just nothing. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just some reckless trucker. Panic kicked in. I floored it, my own engine screaming as I pushed my truck harder than I ever had before. The road twisted and dipped, a ribbon of black cutting through the mountains. My tires screeched on every curve. But no matter how hard I pushed, the phantom truck stayed locked onto me. Perfectly aligned. Not slowing, not swerving, not missing a beat. It was like it was tethered to me, like it wasn't following the road. It was following me. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it, that maybe the driver was slumped low, or maybe the glare was hiding him. But every time the fog thinned, I saw it. That empty cab, that wheel turning itself. And then came the sound. I've heard a lot of engines in my life. I know the growl of a diesel, the whine of a tired motor. But what I heard that night wasn't like any machine I've ever known. It was deeper, angrier, a guttural roar, like steel grinding on steel, like fire eating air. It didn't just echo through the night, it pressed into me, rattling my ribs, making the steering wheel tremble in my hands. It wasn't just loud, it felt alive. And the smell, God, the smell. Like burning oil mixed with smoke, thick and choking, pouring into my cab through the vents. The road curved sharply ahead, a guardrail separating me from a drop straight into blackness. I couldn't slow down. If I did, that thing would plow straight into me. I braced myself. The headlights filled every inch of my mirrors. Closer, closer. My body tensed for the crash. I whispered, "This is it." But the impact never came. Instead, the lights exploded, brighter than I thought possible, searing white. And then, nothing. The road behind me was empty, silent. The truck was gone. I didn't stop until I hit the next truck stop miles down the road. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely kill the engine. When I stumbled inside, I must have looked pale as a ghost, because another trucker at the counter gave me this knowing look. "You saw him, didn't you?" he said. I didn't even ask what he meant. My silence was enough. He leaned closer, voice dropping low. "The ghost rider of the Smokies. Some say it's a trucker who died out here years ago, fell asleep at the wheel. They say his rig went over the cliffs, burned for 3 days. Ever since then he's been out here, chasing anyone unlucky enough to cross his path." I sat there, staring into my coffee, my hands still trembling. I wanted to laugh it off, call it exhaustion, call it a trick of the fog. But deep down, I knew. I had seen that truck. I had heard its engine, and it was hunting me. To this day, every time I drive those mountain roads, I keep my eyes fixed on the rearview mirror. Because somewhere out there in the Smoky Mountains, that phantom truck is still prowling. And maybe next time, it won't vanish. Maybe next time, it'll take me with it. If you like these horror stories, please like and share this video and subscribe to the channel for more true horror stories. And if you'd like to support the channel even more, consider joining our channel membership. You'll get exclusive perks, early access to new horror stories, member-only videos you won't find anywhere else, exclusive stories too dark, too disturbing, and too terrifying for everyone else, and you'll be helping us keep the nightmares coming. Have you ever been on a highway so empty, so desolate, that it feels like the world has just stopped, where the only sound is your own engine, and the road stretches into a black abyss with no end in sight. That's where I was. Route 93, Arizona, a stretch of desert road that feels more like another planet than part of the United States. Truckers talk about this place. Some call it cursed, some say it's haunted, and I used to laugh at those stories, thought they were just campfire tales passed around on long hauls. Until that night, until I saw something I cannot explain. Something pale, something crawling, and it hasn't left me since. It was just past midnight. I'd left Phoenix earlier in the evening, hauling a load of construction supplies headed up toward Las Vegas. The desert night was heavy. I remember rolling my window down at one point, just to feel some air. But even then, it was hot, like standing in front of an oven. Route 93 is not the kind of road where you want to break down. For hours, it's nothing but desert, scrub brush, and jagged mountains in the distance. No gas stations, no rest stops, barely even a shoulder to pull over on. It's the kind of stretch where you start to realize how fragile you really are, just a machine on wheels in the middle of nowhere. And the strangest thing was the silence. Even with my engine humming, it felt like the desert swallowed sound. No animals, no insects, no wind, just endless nothing. And as mile after mile slipped past, that silence pressed in harder, like the whole desert was holding its breath. I was somewhere between Wickiup and Kingman, deep in the emptiest part of the road, when I noticed something ahead. At first I thought it was just an animal. Roadkill, maybe. A coyote, a stray dog. You see enough strange shapes in the beam of your headlights that you stop second-guessing them. But then, it moved. Slow at first, shifting, rising up off the pavement. And my stomach dropped, because it wasn't shaped like anything I recognized. It was human. Or at least, it was trying to look human. A pale, emaciated figure, on its hands and knees, crawling across the asphalt like a wounded animal. Its skin was so white it almost glowed against the black road. Its limbs were too long, stretched like sticks, bending and jerking with every motion. I gripped the wheel tighter, leaning forward as the figure dragged itself slowly into the center of my lane. I slowed down without even realizing it, my foot easing off the gas as my headlights poured over that figure. That's when it moved differently. It went from a slow, dragging crawl to something impossible. Its limbs snapped into motion, elbows and knees bending too far, joints popping out of place. It scuttled across the asphalt in a jerking, spider-like movement, fast, too fast for something crawling. Every instinct in me screamed to stop, to turn around, to do anything but keep driving toward it. But before I could react, it froze, dead still, right in the center of the road, its back hunched high, its arms bent at broken angles, its head bowed low. I was only yards away, and I couldn't tear my eyes off it. And then it did the one thing that will haunt me until the day I die. It turned its head. Not just a glance, not like a person looking over their shoulder. Its neck twisted, bone and sinew groaning under the strain, until its head rotated all the way around, a complete circle. And those eyes, hollow, black pits sunk deep into its skull. They locked onto me with a kind of hunger I can't describe. It didn't flinch from the light, didn't move aside, just stayed crouched in the road, staring at me with its head twisted backwards like it wasn't bound by human anatomy anymore. I remember my heart slamming in my chest as I pressed harder on the gas. I had to get past it. But as my truck closed the distance, that thing never looked away. Not once. I floored it, barreling straight toward that nightmare. I half expected the impact, half expected to hear the crunch of bones under my tires. But there was nothing. When I looked in my mirror, my blood ran cold. It wasn't in the road anymore. It was behind me, running. Not crawling, not dragging. Running on all fours like a predator, its limbs bending wrong, its back arched like a spider. And it was fast. Too fast. My truck was pushing 40, then 50, but it kept up, skittering down the asphalt with unnatural speed. And the worst part, its head never turned back forward. It kept its gaze locked on me, staring over its shoulder, even as its body ran the other direction. I grabbed my CB radio, my hands slick with sweat, and I shouted into it, asking if anyone else was out there. My voice was trembling. Static filled the cab. Then finally, a voice cut through. "You see it too, huh?" That's all the other trucker said, and my stomach dropped, because I realized this wasn't just my nightmare. This was real. and it had been seen before. I pressed the pedal harder. 60, 70, 80. My truck roared, the engine straining. For a moment, I thought I'd lost it, but then I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. It wasn't behind me anymore. It was beside me, running parallel with my cab, its long arms and legs jerking, its body slamming against the air like some starved animal. Its face pressed against my passenger side window, those hollow eyes staring through the glass. It was smiling, a wide, broken smile that split its gaunt face in half. I don't remember the next few miles. My brain was running on pure panic, my knuckles white on the wheel. And then, just like that, it was gone. No sound, no movement. The road ahead was empty, but the dread didn't fade. In fact, it grew heavier. Because I swear, even after it disappeared, I could feel it. Like its eyes were still on me, watching from the black desert, pacing me unseen. Every mile closer to Las Vegas, I couldn't shake it. And honestly, I don't think I ever will. I made it to Las Vegas before dawn. I parked, climbed out, and just stood there in the early light, trying to convince myself it hadn't been real. But when I talked to other truckers later, more than a few nodded knowingly. They'd seen it too. The pale figure, the thing that crawls, then runs, the thing that stares even when it shouldn't be able to. So maybe it wasn't just a nightmare. Maybe Route 93 really is cursed. And if you ever find yourself driving it at night and you see something pale in your headlights, don't slow down, don't stop. And for God's sake, don't look it in the eyes, because if you do, it might follow you too. Chains. That's the sound I still hear at night. Cold steel dragging across a concrete floor. People ask me sometimes, what's the scariest thing I've ever experienced in all my years on the road? I've seen wrecks, I've driven through blizzards, I've been stranded in the middle of nowhere. But none of it comes close to what I stumbled onto in the summer of 2008. That night at a truck stop in rural Ohio, I found something that changed me forever. Something I wish I could forget. If I close my eyes long enough, I can still hear those voices below my feet. And if I'd taken just one more step down that staircase, I don't think I'd be here to tell this story. It had been a brutal day on the road. I was hauling freight through the Midwest, chasing the clock like always. My back ached from sitting, my eyes were dry and red, and every muscle in my body screamed for rest. I spotted a truck stop exit I didn't recognize, the kind of place that barely shows up on a map. The building looked worn down, its neon sign buzzing weakly against the darkness. Most drivers know there are truck stops you trust, and there are the ones you avoid unless you're desperate. That night, I was desperate. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was off. The air was thick with the smell of old grease, burnt coffee, and cigarette smoke that seemed baked into the walls. The fluorescent lights hummed and flickered overhead, their glow sickly and pale. The booths were torn, the counter sticky. A middle-aged woman sat behind the register, flipping lazily through a newspaper, barely glancing up when I walked past. Two truckers sat in the far booth, hunched close together, whispering in low voices. When I looked their way, they stopped talking. One of them gave me a glance, cold, sharp, before turning back. It felt like I had stepped into a room where I didn't belong, like everyone knew something I didn't. I ordered a coffee, sat down, tried to relax, but something kept gnawing at me. The silence between whispers, the way the woman at the counter never met my eyes. When I finished, I wandered down a hallway, just trying to stretch my legs. That's when I noticed it. Past the bathrooms, half in shadow, was a door I'd never expect to see in a place like this. Heavy, old, like it belonged in a factory, not a truck stop. My boots scuffed the floor as I approached. My chest tightened, and then I saw the chain lock on the outside. It didn't make sense. Why would you lock something from the outside unless you wanted to keep it from getting out? I told myself to turn around, but curiosity got the better of me. I leaned closer, pressing my ear to the cold wood. At first I thought it was just the pipes, but then I froze. The sound was too distinct, too human. Chains, clinking, dragging, faint but real. My breath caught in my throat, and then footsteps, slow, heavy, moving just beneath me. My heart pounded so loud I thought they'd hear it. Then came the voices, low, muffled, dozens of them, maybe more. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Pleading, begging. I stumbled back, my skin crawling. Whatever was behind that door, it wasn't supposed to be there. Then the impossible happened. The chain rattled. The door nudged forward, just an inch, but enough to see it wasn't locked from the inside. Something, or someone, was pressing against it. My body reacted before my brain did. I stumbled backwards so fast I nearly tripped. My boots scraped against the hallway floor, the sound echoing. The voices cut off instantly. The silence that followed was worse than anything I just heard. It was like the whole place was holding its breath, waiting for me to make the next move. I didn't. I turned and I ran. I didn't stop running until I was back in my rig. I slammed the door, locked it, and just sat there, staring through the windshield at that diner glowing faintly in the dark. My chest was heaving, my palms slick with sweat. I told myself it was nothing. Just a tired mind playing tricks after too many hours on the road. But deep down, I knew better. That sound, those voices, the way the door moved, I hadn't imagined that. Something was down there. I should have left it at that. But the road does strange things to a man's mind. Hours alone with your thoughts, you start to replay things over and over. I couldn't stop thinking about that door, about the voices. By the time the next night rolled around, I had convinced myself I had to go back. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe I'd just find a boiler room, some pipes, something normal to set my mind at ease. But a part of me already knew there was nothing normal about that place. When I came back, the diner was nearly empty. No counterwoman, no truckers in the booth, just silence. The hallway stretched ahead like a throat swallowing me whole. My hand shook as I reached for the knob. It turned. The chain was gone, and the door opened with a low groan. The smell hit me first. Stale air, mildew, sweat, and something else, metallic, sour, like blood. My stomach churned. A single light bulb dangled from a wire above a staircase, casting just enough light to see the concrete steps descending into the dark. My boots hovered at the edge. My chest tightened, and then I heard it again, a whisper. But this time, I swore it said my name. That was it. I bolted. I didn't care if anyone saw me. I didn't care if I looked insane. I ran out across the lot, climbed into my truck, and drove. I drove until the sun rose and my tank was nearly empty. I didn't stop, didn't look back. But the whole time I could feel it, the weight of whatever was in that basement pressing on me. Like if I slowed down, if I stopped, it would catch me. Weeks later, I saw it on the news. That very truck stop had been raided. Police had uncovered a hidden network of rooms beneath it. Shackles on the walls, cages, evidence of trafficking. People had been held down there. God knows how many. God knows for how long. My stomach turned cold. Those weren't just voices I'd heard. They were real. They were people. And if I'd taken one more step down those stairs, I might have joined them. To this day, I can't stop thinking about it. I wonder how many other truck stops look ordinary on the outside but hide horrors underneath. I've spent decades on the road, but that night still haunts me more than anything. Because I was there. I heard them. I almost went down those stairs. And every night since, when my rig hums along the highway and the world is dark and quiet, I swear I can still hear those chains rattling, waiting, echoing from a basement I should have never found. Have you ever seen something on the road so impossible, so out of place, that you questioned your own sanity? I'm not talking about tricks of the eye, not headlights mistaken for stars, not fatigue making you nod off at the wheel. I'm talking about something that you can't explain, no matter how many times you replay it in your head. For me, it happened on a cold Wyoming night in the 1970s. A night that started like any other run and ended with me questioning whether I'd witnessed a piece of history replaying itself or something far more sinister. Because that was the night I saw the ghost convoy, a fleet of old military trucks rolling across the blacktop in the dead of night before vanishing into thin air. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can still hear the rumble. I can still see those yellowed headlights stretching into the horizon. And worst of all, I can still feel that icy chill that crept into my cab the moment they passed me by. It was sometime around 75 or 76. I'd been hauling freight for years by then, running long stretches across the west. That night, I had a full trailer and a thermos of coffee, making my way west from Cheyenne toward Rock Springs. If you've never driven that part of Wyoming, let me paint you a picture. It's lonely country, the kind of lonely that gets inside your bones. You can go miles without seeing a soul, just mile markers and a ribbon of asphalt cutting through empty plains. No towns, no billboards, just a cold desert wind and the sound of your own engine keeping you company. The moon was thin, barely a sliver, and the sky was clear enough to see every star. The CB radio was dead quiet, static humming softly. I remember thinking how the world felt, too still, like the whole state had gone to sleep and left me behind. That's when I spotted lights up ahead, not one or two, a whole mess of them. Headlights lined up across the horizon. At first, I figured it was a convoy of cattle haulers, maybe some rigs hauling out of Texas, but something about it didn't sit right. The lights weren't bright like halogens or sealed beams. They were dim, faint, like old bulbs you'd find in a warehouse, the kind that flicker before they burn out. As I closed the gap, my stomach tightened. These weren't modern rigs, they weren't even close. They looked ancient, heavy, boxy shapes from another time, olive-drab paint, canvas tops stretched over wooden frames, white stars stenciled on the doors. It hit me. They were military trucks, the kind I'd only seen in old photographs from World War II. But what in God's name were a dozen World War II trucks doing out on a Wyoming highway in the middle of the night, in the mid-70s? Their engines had a different sound, too. Not the familiar diesel growl of a Peterbilt or Kenworth. This was lower, rougher, like a rolling thunder that shook the pavement itself. But the strangest part? They moved too perfectly. Every truck in formation, bumper to bumper, like they were marching down the highway. No one speeding up, no one lagging behind. Just one solid line of steel ghosts rolling through the night. I eased off the accelerator, pulled to the right lane, and let them come up alongside me. My cab shuddered as the first truck rolled past. The air felt colder suddenly, like I'd opened a freezer door. One by one, they passed me. I glanced into the back of each one, expecting to see crates, supplies, something. But every truck was empty. Canvas tops flapping in the wind, the beds bare, and then the drivers. At first I thought the dark made it hard to see their faces, but as more trucks passed, the truth hit me. There were no faces, just black silhouettes gripping the wheels, their heads jerking mechanically as the trucks rolled on. Not men, not soldiers, just shadows. The hairs on the back of my neck stood straight. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles white. Every instinct told me, don't look too long, don't let them notice you. They stretched out ahead of me, a snake of dim yellow lights disappearing into the dark. But then, just like that, they were gone. No turnoff, no exits, no dirt roads leading away. I had a clear view of the highway, flat and straight for miles. 1 second, the convoy filled the road. The next, there was nothing but empty blacktop, stretching endlessly into the night. I slammed my brakes, heart pounding. The only sound was my own rig, idling against the silence. Not a single taillight, not even dust. It was like they'd been erased. I sat there for minutes, staring at the void ahead, and the longer I sat, the more wrong it felt. The air seemed too still, too heavy, like the night itself was holding its breath. I didn't stop shaking until I hit the next truck stop near Rawlins. I parked under the buzzing fluorescent lights, grabbed my thermos, and stumbled inside. A couple of truckers were already there, sitting at a booth, sipping coffee. Rough-looking old boys, the kind who'd seen everything. One of them glanced at me and smirked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Before I could answer, the other one leaned forward and asked, real casual, "Did the convoy pass you?" I froze. My throat went dry. They nodded at each other when I didn't speak. Happens out here, every so often. Some folks call it the ghost fleet. We've all seen it once or twice. I asked what it was. Neither of them had an answer. One swore it was a group of soldiers who died in a training exercise. Another said it was the army moving equipment in secret, covering their tracks with lies. But the third theory chilled me most. One of them leaned close and whispered, "Maybe they're not from our time at all. Maybe they're stuck in theirs." That was nearly 50 years ago. And still, I think about it every time I pass through Wyoming. Sometimes when the highway is empty and the night is too quiet, I'll catch myself turning down the CB, straining my ears, because I swear I can still hear it, the low rumble of those old engines echoing across the plains. And sometimes, just sometimes, I'll glance in the mirror and swear I see a faint yellow glow behind me. Headlights too dim to be modern, too steady, too perfect. I've never tried to chase them, never dared. Because I know one thing, whatever that convoy is, it's not meant to be followed, not meant to be touched. It's out there, rolling endlessly through the night, trapped between this world and the next. So if you ever find yourself on that stretch of Wyoming highway and you see a line of old military trucks drifting out of the dark, don't blink, don't follow, and for God's sake, don't let them see you. Have you ever heard crying when you knew you were completely, utterly alone? Not just a faint sound in the distance, not a trick of your imagination, but real. Close enough that you feel like if you reached out, your hand might brush against the person sobbing. That happened to me. And it didn't happen in some haunted house or an abandoned asylum or a graveyard at midnight. It happened in a truck stop parking lot on I-10. I'll never forget that night, because what followed has haunted me in ways I still can't explain. I've been a truck driver for nearly 20 years, and let me tell you, you see strange things out on the road. Shadows darting across highways, figures walking along desolate stretches of interstate, strange lights out in the desert that no one can explain. But that night, I had been driving nearly 12 hours, weaving through the long desert stretches of Texas. I was exhausted. My eyes burned, my back ached, and I knew I needed rest before I made a mistake on the road. So when I saw a faded highway sign for a rest area, I took the exit. The place was small. Nothing but a cracked lot, a couple of lonely vending machines glowing with a sickly fluorescent light, and a restroom building that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the 80s. It was about 2 in the morning, dead quiet. Just me, my truck, and the desert night. I parked, killed the engine, and sat for a moment in the silence. Normally silence feels peaceful after a long drive, but that night it felt oppressive. I leaned back, shut my eyes, and let myself drift. But then, it cut through the silence. A sound so out of place, so raw that I snapped awake instantly. Crying. The sound of a woman sobbing. It wasn't faint either. It wasn't something I could write off as wind or coyotes in the distance or my imagination. It was right outside my truck. It sounded like she was standing just a few feet from my door. Her sobs rose and broke like waves, filled with a pain that didn't just echo, it pressed into my chest. I froze. My first thought was maybe another traveler had pulled in without me noticing, maybe someone in trouble. But when I sat up and looked out the windshield, scanning the lot, there was nothing. No other cars, no movement, no one at all. Just me and the crying. Every instinct told me to stay in the cab, lock the doors, and wait it out. But a part of me, I don't know if it was habit or duty or just plain stupidity, felt like I couldn't just ignore someone who might need help. So against my better judgment, I grabbed my flashlight from the console, unlatched the door, and stepped down into the cool desert night. The air was still, the kind of stillness that makes every sound, even the crunch of gravel under your boots, seem too loud. I swept the beam across the lot, nothing, just the vending machines, humming faintly. The bathroom doors shut tight, but the sobbing didn't stop. It seemed to move, like it was circling me. 1 second behind me, the next to my left, then in front again. My stomach tightened. The hair on the back of my neck prickled. I'd been in dangerous situations before, but this was different. This wasn't danger I could see. This was something else, something I didn't understand. I told myself it had to be coming from the restroom. Maybe someone was locked in there, maybe hurt. So I walked toward the building, each step heavier than the last. The crying grew louder with every foot I put forward. I pulled open the heavy metal door, and it screeched on its hinges. The smell hit me first. Bleach, damp concrete, and something else, something sour and stale. My flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing cracked tile, graffiti-scrawled walls, and rust-stained sinks. The sobbing was louder in here. I followed the sound past the stalls, heart pounding, expecting, no, needing, to find someone crouched in a corner. But when I reached the last stall, swung the door open, there was no one. The bathroom was empty, just the echo of crying bouncing from wall to wall with no source. My skin crawled. I backed out of that bathroom, muttering to myself, pipes, wind, echo, just an echo, anything to explain it. I hurried back across the lot, climbed into my cab, and locked the doors tight. I sat there gripping the wheel, listening to the hum of silence, and for a moment I thought it was over, until it started again, the sobbing. But this time, it wasn't outside. It was inside my cab. At first it was soft, right behind my seat, the broken, muffled sobs of a woman. I whipped around, flashlight shaking in my hand, and lit up the small sleeper area behind me. Empty. Then the crying shifted right to my ear. So close I felt warm breath brush against my neck, and then I heard it, a whisper, trembling, broken. "Help me." I lost it. I slammed the keys, fired the engine, and floored it out of that rest stop like the devil was chasing me. My tires screamed against the gravel, headlights slicing through the black desert night. But the crying followed me. It filled the cab, louder and louder, a woman's voice breaking into full hysterics, echoing around me until I thought my skull would split. I screamed, begged it to stop, covered my ears, but it didn't matter. The sobs weren't in my ears. They were in my head. Then, just as suddenly as it began, silence. The air felt hollow, like every sound had been sucked away. I dared to breathe again. My grip on the wheel loosened, my heart slowed. I thought maybe it was finally over. And then, I looked in my side mirror. That's when I saw her. She was sitting in the sleeper, a woman in a torn white dress, head bowed, long black hair falling across her face. Slowly, she lifted her head. Her eyes were hollow, black, empty. I blinked once, and she was gone. I don't stop at rest areas anymore. Not after that night. I keep hearing stories since then. Other truckers whispering about the sobbing woman. Some say she was a hitchhiker, murdered and left in the desert. Some say she lost her child and still searches, crying out in the night. All I know is this: if you ever find yourself alone on I-10, late at night, and you hear crying at a rest stop, don't get out, don't go looking, because if you do, she might not let you leave. And if you're unlucky, she might follow you home. You ever wonder what it would feel like to wake up in the middle of nowhere and realize you're not alone? Back in 2003, I pulled into a truck stop in Kansas for the night. I thought it was just another routine haul. But before the sun rose, I would stumble into one of the most horrifying scenes of my life. And to this day, I don't know if what I saw that night was real or something much, much worse. It was late, maybe close to midnight, when I pulled off the interstate. My eyes were heavy, and I just needed a place to rest. The truck stop was mostly empty, except for a few rigs spaced out in the dark. I parked next to one with its curtains drawn shut. Nothing unusual. I killed the engine, climbed into my sleeper, and tried to relax. But there was something about the air that night, something heavy, like the silence was alive. Somewhere between drifting off and waking up, I heard it. A dull thump, like metal on metal, then soft footsteps. I thought maybe it was just another driver stretching his legs, but the sound didn't fade. It circled around the rigs. Slow, careful, almost like it was watching. My gut told me not to look, not to move, but curiosity always wins, doesn't it? I pulled the curtain back just enough to peek outside. That's when I saw it, a tall, dark figure slipping between the trailers. It wasn't moving like a normal person. It glided too fast, too smooth. The hair on the back of my neck stood straight up. I shut the curtain, held my breath, and told myself it was just another driver. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Then came the sound I'll never forget, a muffled cry, cut short. It came from the rig next to mine. My heart froze. I sat there in silence, staring at the wall of my sleeper, waiting for something, anything. And then, nothing. Just the groan of the wind across the plains. I wanted to believe I imagined it. I wanted to believe I was just tired. But something inside me said I had to look. I climbed out of my cab, every nerve screaming at me to get back inside. The lot felt wrong, too quiet, too still. I walked up to the truck next to mine, my boots echoing on the pavement. The sleeper curtains were half open now. I didn't want to look inside, but something pulled me closer. And when I did, I wished I hadn't. The driver was slumped back, eyes wide open, blood pooling on the mattress beneath him. His throat was cut clean. He looked like he had been frozen mid-scream. My stomach dropped. I stumbled back, nearly falling. That's when I saw movement again, just beyond the rigs. That same shadow, watching me. I swear it wasn't just a man. It was too tall, too thin, its head tilted like it was studying me. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. All I could do was back away and run for my truck. I must have called 911 in a blind panic, because the next thing I knew, red and blue lights were flooding the lot. Officers swarmed the scene. They said it was a robbery gone wrong, that the poor guy had just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. But none of them would talk about the noises. None of them saw the shadow. And when I tried to explain, they just gave me that look, the kind you give someone you think is crazy. I drove away before dawn, hands gripping the wheel so tight they hurt, but the whole time, I could feel it. The weight of unseen eyes watching me from the mirrors. Like that shadow had hitched a ride, following me down the empty Kansas highway. Even now, 20 years later, I can still hear those muffled cries. I can still see those lifeless eyes staring back at me. And sometimes when I pull into a lonely truck stop in the dead of night, I wonder if it's still out there, waiting. So if you're ever out there on the road, parked in the middle of nowhere, and you hear footsteps outside your rig, don't look, don't open the curtain, because once you see what's really out there, you'll never sleep again. Have you ever pulled into a lonely highway rest stop late at night, thinking it would be just another quick stop? Maybe to stretch your legs, splash cold water on your face, or just close your eyes for a few minutes before the road pulled you under? Now imagine this. You park your rig, the lights are buzzing faintly overhead, and you think you're alone. But then, you see something. A shadow where it shouldn't be, footsteps echoing when no one's there, and then a knock at your window. That's not a story I heard from somebody else. It happened to me back in the summer of 1986, along Interstate 5 in California. I didn't believe the truck stop rumors back then, the whispers about a so-called rest stop killer. But that night changed everything, and I can tell you this, I've never stopped at a lonely rest area after dark again. I was hauling freight down I-5, the kind of long, lonely stretch where the radio static becomes your only companion. Around midnight, exhaustion hit me like a brick. My eyes burned, my head nodded, and I knew I had to stop. That's when I saw the rest area sign, glowing green in the dark. I wish I had just kept driving. The rest stop was empty. No cars, no other trucks, just my rig and the dim, buzzing lights. It should have felt safe, but the silence pressed down on me. It felt wrong, like the place had been abandoned for years, yet freshly used. I grabbed my flashlight and headed for the restroom. The door creaked as I pushed it open, echoing down the tiled hallway. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed weakly. A couple of them were out, leaving long shadows stretching across the floor. And that's when I saw it, writing on the mirror in red marker. He waits when you sleep. I laughed nervously, trying to shake it off as a prank. But when I turned to leave, I froze. The sound of footsteps echoed behind me, slow, deliberate. I spun around with my flashlight, but the bathroom was empty. Still, the air felt thick, like someone was right behind me, breathing down my neck. I practically ran back to my truck, locking the doors behind me. I sat in the cab, heart pounding, telling myself it was just my imagination. But then I saw it, across the lot, near the tree line. A man, tall, still, almost blending into the shadows, watching me. I remembered the rumors. Other truckers whispered about bodies found at rest stops along I-5. Strangled, stabbed, left in bathroom stalls, or dumped behind dumpsters. The police never caught the guy. Some said he was a drifter. Others swore he was a trucker himself, blending in, waiting for his next victim. I tried to convince myself it was paranoia, but then I heard it. A soft knock on the driver's side window. Tap, tap, tap. I turned slowly, and there he was, his face just inches from the glass. Pale skin, dark eyes that didn't blink, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I didn't think. I just slammed the truck into gear and floored it. Gravel sprayed behind me as I roared back onto the interstate. My heart was racing, my hands slick with sweat. In my side mirror, I swear I saw him, standing in the middle of the lot, watching me disappear into the night. I never reported it. What would I say? That a ghostly killer knocked on my window? That I saw something the cops couldn't catch for years? I kept driving, but I never stopped at another lonely rest area after dark. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still hear it, that faint tapping on the glass, waiting for me to stop again. So if you're ever driving I-5 late at night and you feel too tired to go on, don't stop at the rest areas. Keep driving, because he's still out there, waiting. Thanks for watching Sinister Horror Diaries. Until next time, stay safe, stay scared, stay sinister.